Bad news, ladies and gentlemen. We have more injury updates. Looks like Daniel Jones is a long shot to play this week. Looks like Deebo Samuel dealing with the shoulder fracture, going to be out 2 weeks now. We have a lot to talk about. We'll be looking at updated fantasy football projections, take into account the injuries that we've had as of late. And yeah, let's go ahead. Let's jump in here. Just in case you don't know what we're doing, we're looking at Underdog Pickems. Is what I do every single Saturday, because with these Underdog Pickems, they have to be pretty damn accurate when it comes to putting them out, because you could go through, you could take the more than, you could take the less than, and Underdog stands to lose a ton of money if they are wrong with them. So yeah, super valuable to take a look at. And obviously those ones at the top, the Lamar Jackson more than less than half a total yard, the three most not real projections. Those are just specials, but let's go ahead and let's move past this. Looking at the Detroit Lions, if you actually look at Las Vegas sportsbooks, really surprising to see they have the Lions as one of the worst offenses in the NFL this week. Now this is going to be played in Baltimore, blah, blah, blah. So if you look at Jared Goff on Underdog, they have him almost at 17 fantasy points. If you're going to be looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, they have him currently at 73.5 total yards. So, I mean, hard to go through and hard to say that either guy is a player that you need to bench. I would say in the case of Jared Goff, definitely more willing to bench him than I would be Amon-Ra. You're playing Amon-Ra St. Brown, and also the Sam Laporta pick'em. They have him at 4 receptions, 41.5 receiving yards. That I honestly think is a very fair projection, but I like the 2x multiplier for Sam Laporta to score a touchdown this week. Even odds, I wouldn't like it. You're going to give me a 2x. I will definitely take it. Now going over to Lamar, yes, with the special pick'em, the more than less than half a total yard, that is something you have to take. That's only going to be available to the new people on Underdog. And of course, not already on Underdog Fantasy, it's not too late. Now is actually the best time to get on Underdog Fantasy, as when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, if you are new, you are going to get a Lamar Jackson special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, they have a site-wide special for NBA tip-off. LeBron James more than less than half a total point for everybody, so you'll get both of those. And because we had so many people sign up to Underdog Fantasy last week with promo code FLOCK, you're also going to get an Amon-Ra St. Brown special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard as well. So please make sure you are taking advantage of that, ladies and gentlemen. Super happy we're able to get you all those. But going over to what we have with the running backs, Edwards projects out to be the lead guy. They're in a committee. It could be a 3-man running back by committee with Keaton Mitchell as well. Not interested in any of the running backs. Zay Flowers must start wide receiver. Mark Andrews must start tight end. If you notice, they actually had Sam Laporta at 4 receptions, 41.5 receiving yards. You have Mark Andrews at 53.5 receiving yards. So there's still a clear tier gap between these players, which is why I've said in the past, if you could go through and sell Sam Laporta in a small piece to get to Mark Andrews, I think that'd be very easy to do. Nobody else here is interesting. Now going over to Cleveland, very difficult to talk too much on this. We don't know if Deshaun Watson will be good to go at this point. I mean, if Kareem Hunt were to miss, then I actually wouldn't mind going with the more than 55.5 rushing yards with Ford. I would say if you have no Kareem Hunt, is someone that you need to start. But right now, we just have no idea if Hunt will play or not. Going over to Indy, you have Jonathan Taylor, 44.5 rushing yards. You have Zach Moss at 35.5. Both players look unlikely to score touchdowns. Obviously, it's just such a tough matchup going up against the Cleveland Browns here. Based off bye weeks, based off injuries, I'd say if you have Jonathan Taylor, you probably do have to start him, to be honest. Then Michael Pittman Jr., 49.5 receiving yards, way lower than he usually is. Last week, he was at 63.5 receiving yards for his pick'em. But keep in mind, it's because of the matchups, because you are going up against Cleveland, which is why it's very difficult to project those out. Now, going over to Buffalo, you have no Damian Harris in this game. So there are a couple of different things that you could be looking at with these running backs. I think James Cook is, just because of the bye weeks, because of the injuries, probably a must-start running back here. You have James Cook at 51.5 rushing yards. You have Latavius Murray at 1.5x to score a touchdown. Obviously, Latavius should have a higher role with no Damian Harris as well. With Stephon Diggs, you're starting him no matter what. Obviously, an elite level option. Dalton Kincaid off the injury report should be good to go. Long shot to score a touchdown, but still, you could throw him in if you're desperate due to buys. And then Gabe Davis, they only have a 33.5 receiving yards. I actually really do like Gabe Davis for more than 33.5 yards this week. You'll see some other players later on, like Cortland Sutton, they're at like 51.5 receiving yards. And I mean, really, it's weird to look at that because I asked everybody in the live chat last night, like, who would you rather start? Would you rather go Gabe Davis or Sutton? And everybody was in agreement to go ahead and take Gabe Davis. Going over to New England, Mac Jones, not playable. Ramondre Stevenson, they have 62.5 total yards. We've talked about this time and time again. The issue that you have with Ramondre is he's in a horrendous offense. He is sharing the backfield with Ezekiel Elliott, who's at 40.5 rushing yards. And there's not really any sign of efficient play from Ramondre Stevenson so far this season. Now, Juju is up in the air. Honestly, it doesn't matter the other wide receivers that are viable here. If you really wanted to go through and look at Kendrick Bourne, you can. Kendrick Bourne's at 41.5 receiving yards. Now, going over to Atlanta, you're going to have Desmond Ridder at 15 fantasy points. With Ridder, I mean, I was kind of hoping that he was going to run the ball more this year. He just simply hasn't. Like, he's only at 9.5 rushing yards for his pick'em. I mean, I know that obviously some people are going to be looking at that interception mark, but Bijan Robinson, this is one of my favorite pick'ems of the week to have more than 12 fantasy points. It's a happy BR format, so keep that in mind. Obviously, in a full BBR league, it would be an easy mark, but I still do like it. Then Drake London, 47.5 receiving yards. Maybe you have to start London as a mid-wide receiver 3 just because lineups and injuries are really bad this week. Kyle Pitts at 32.5 receiving yards. Jonnu at 30. I mean, really none of the tight ends here are interesting if they're in a tight end by committee. Now, going over to Tampa, the main thing that we're going to be looking at will be the receivers and the running backs. So you have Rachaad White at 72.5 total yards in a okay matchup where they are favored over the Atlanta Falcons. So Rachaad White, given the slate that we have this week, probably a running back that you have to start. I actually really don't mind at all to go with the fewer than 59.5 receiving yards for Chris Godwin. I mean, with Godwin, it's kind of crazy to see him ahead of Mike Evans here with the Pickems, where you have Godwin at 59.5 receiving yards. You have Mike Evans at 56.5 total yards. And also, real quick side note, if you include the Mike Evans 56.5 total yards mark in your pick'em slip, whether you go higher or lower, Underdog's going to be giving away $100,000 to people who do that tomorrow. I mean, we've had multiple members of the flock win $10,000 this year off of that Underdog giveaway. So if you are submitting a pick'em slip this week, remember to do the Mike Evans, either more than or less than 56.5 receiving yards. That will be up to you. But no, I don't want to play K. Dotton. Don't care about the defensive guys. So swing over to Las Vegas, where you have no Jimmy Garoppolo. You're dealing with Brian Hoyer here. Doesn't matter for Jacobs. Great matchup against Chicago. You have 97.5 total yards for his pick'em. You have Devontae Adams at 68.5. Devontae Adams, still a must-start player for me. Still looks like a low to high-end wide receiver. I mean, low wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. Myers, 51.5 receiving yards. Not as excited to play Jacoby Myers, just given the fact that you have no Jimmy G. Now, with Michael Mayer, this is a tight end that was 100% someone you needed to pick up off the waiver wire. He's only at 20.5 receiving yards. Like, you can't play Michael Mayer until we see him over a larger sample, so just keep that in mind. DJ Moore, they currently have at 53.5 total yards. I still think that DJ Moore is playable. I still think that Cole Kmet is playable, just simply because no idea what we are going to be getting here in Chicago, but it's not like Justin Fields has been a quarterback that's been providing a ton of passing volume for years now. And then side note, Deonta Foreman was not here. Foreman will be a must-start running back as there's no Roschon Johnson this week. Going over to Washington, Sam Howell. I know we've had a lot of people asking, oh, Jordan Love or Sam Howell or Trevor Lawrence. That was a very popular question on Thursday. Don't know why y'all are so excited about Sam Howell. Like, if you really needed to start him against New York, you can. I mean, right now they have him at 231.5 passing yards. 250 total yards. Brian Robinson, someone that you need to start. And we've actually been on a heater as of late, going with the more than receiving yards mark for Brian Robinson. In weeks past, though, it was like 6.5 yards. So like here, 9.5, maybe it's a little bit tougher. But yeah, that has been something we've been crushing as of late. Terry McLaurin, 58.5 total yards. And then I honestly was very intrigued and looking at the Jahan Dotson, fewer than 37.5 receiving yards. Decided not to go for it. But I mean, if y'all saw on Twitter this week, they had Dotson out there practicing holding for the kickers. Like what the hell is Jahan Dotson doing at this point? Now, Saquon Barkley, must-start guy. I mean, yes, the offense is going to be horrendous. Darren Waller, they have at 36.5 receiving yards, which is more than someone like Cole Kmet. You have no Daniel Jones here. Even if the defense against Washington is horrendous, still hard to start anybody in this offense. Then looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers side of things, I mean, if you wanted to go through and start a receiver, I'm going to be starting Deontay. I don't know. It will be up to you. I mean, if you're looking at this, George Pickens does project out to be more likely to score a touchdown. They have Pickens with the more than half a touchdown with a 1.75x multiplier, whereas you have Deontay Johnson with the 2x. But let's move beyond this. If you're going over to the Rams side of things, Matthew Stafford, someone that you can start with confidence at 264.5 yards for his passing yardage mark. Cooper Kupp actually opened up the week at 98.5 total yards. And I really wanted to go out there and take the fewer than. I chickened out. I wish I would have. It has moved down to 90 yards, but obviously you're starting him no matter what. Higbee, you'll notice, is lower than guys like Cole Kmet at this point, just because when you have Kupp, when you have Puka, both in this offense, very hard to project out Tyler Higbee to get any type of volume. I think Tutu Atwell is someone that we can go ahead and just move on from. I think you can cut Tutu Atwell with Puka and Kupp. Good to go in this offense. And then, yeah, with the Rams here, I'm not starting any Los Angeles Ram running back. I think we rostered them all. You stash them all, see what happens. But I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. So I don't want to go out there and play Zach Evans. And it turns out Darrell Henderson and Myles Gaskin split the backfield. Now, Joshua Dobbs does have some rushing upside. I know a lot of people won't start him. 22.5 rushing yards. I would avoid it. Hollywood Brown at 55.5 receiving yards here. They are like 8-point dogs against Seattle. I really don't want to start anybody outside of Hollywood Brown in this offense. You have Keaton Mitchell. I'm sorry, not Keaton Mitchell. You have Keontae Ingram and a 3-man running back by committee here. Now, we have Zach Evans at 23.5 receiving yards. With Evans, Zach Ertz. I apologize. You had Trey McBride getting involved last week. So Trey McBride is getting involved. You can't start Zach Ertz. Like, literally, you're looking at Zach Ertz. I mean, right there next to, like, say, I don't know, Michael Mayer. Now, like I said, Keontae Ingram, they are 8-point dogs against Seattle. They are not really going to be able to run the ball in the second half. It is a running back by committee, so I do not mind the fewer than 10 rushing attempts on Keontae. Michael says, if I want the Mike Evans special, do I need to? Okay, I actually realized this as we said it out loud. I understand we said that for the Mike Evans special pick'em, include it, and then tomorrow Underdog's going to be giving away the 100,000. No, if you make that special pick'em today, then yeah, you'll be entered in to win that tomorrow. Don't worry, you don't have to wait until tomorrow. You can do that right now if you wanted. And that was the Mike Evans one to win the 100,000. Now, you're not going to win all the 100,000. I think Underdog's giving away 10,000 to 10 separate people. Now, moving over to Seattle, I think that Geno Smith, probably someone that's a little bit less appealing if DK Metcalf misses. If DK Metcalf plays, obviously we're going with them. Kenneth Walker, must start running back. Walker looks like a top 5 guy this week. They're 8-point favorites. Good matchup. Plus, you have Zach Charbonnet injured. Looks like Charbonnet may miss. We don't really have much information here. They have him at 89.5 total yards. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are game time decisions. So I've seen a lot of people wanting to go out there and run with the Jackson Smith and Jigba for more than 34.5 receiving yards. Y'all know for the past 2 weeks, I've been calling Jackson Smith and Jigba that buy low candidate. I am hoping that he goes out there and crushes. In reality, I am not going through and assuming we're going to get much this week. Even if Metcalf misses, I am going to be benching him. Now, going over to the Chargers side of things, Eckler must start running back. Not much to talk about. Keenan Allen must start wide receiver. Not much to talk about. Joshua Palmer, they have had 49.5 receiving yards. Palmer projects out to be that low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Based off bye weeks, you may end up having to start him. And then Quentin Johnston is droppable in this game. Now, looking at Mahomes, this is a quarterback that you are starting. And if I waste my time talking about him, y'all are going to just roll your eyes at me. Isaiah Pacheco, 82.5 total yards does seem a little bit rich. I mean, I drafted Pacheco in a ton of underdog drafts this offseason, so I'm really hoping he does well. I mean, obviously, it's a good matchup against Los Angeles. You have Sky at 23.5 total yards. You have Kadarius Toney at 32.5. You have Marquez Valdez-Scantling at 14.5. You have Rashee Rice at 37.5. So Rice does project out to be the wide receiver 1 here, and I showed y'all, I believe 2 days ago, that Rashee Rice was my most drafted Kansas City Chief in underdog drafts this year. So trust me, I have a lot of money riding on Rashee Rice. We got him at an incredibly cheap price point. But at the same time, he just simply is not running enough routes for us to go through and start him in a shallow redraft format. So while Rice is someone you want on your bench and you want to hope that he does increase his role, for now, he is not startable. Now, going over to the Packers, great matchup. And Aaron Jones, right now questionable. This will be something that we have to go through and continue to monitor. But assuming that Aaron Jones does play, even if he's maybe operating at, say, 90%, I don't care. Aaron Jones is a must-start player. And what is the best matchup you could ever ask for? Being a running back going up against the Denver Broncos. And this is an instance of do not start Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice already on to Foreman, a running back that's going to get everything in Chicago. Foreman easily. Like I said, do not start Rashee Rice. I will win a lot of money if Rashee Rice does well. I have a lot to gain, but I don't think he will. Christian Watson, 56.5 total yards. We are actually looking at the Christian Watson more than, I believe, what was it, like 51.5 total yards at the beginning of this week. That line has moved dramatically up. 56.5 total yards. I would say that's a stay away for the people who got it at 51.5 earlier in the week. Congrats. Romeo Doubs, have to bench. Jaden Reed, have to bench. Luke Musgrave is actually in that Cole Kmet range. And like I said, I need to give everybody an apology because I thought once you had Christian Watson and Aaron Jones good to go in Green Bay, I thought you were going to have Luke Musgrave taking a step backwards. But no, Musgrave had a large role this past week. Going over to the Denver side of things, I mean, Javonte is a running back that at this point is in a 3-man running back by committee with Jaleel and Pirine. They have him in the same range as Ramondre Stevenson if you look at the projections, but I would be benching. If we were looking at the receivers here, you have Sutton at like 51.5 receiving yards, which going back to what we were talking about previously, it's kind of funny that I would way rather have Gabe Davis in my lineup than Cortland Sutton. Yet they have Gabe Davis at 33.5 receiving yards and Sutton at 51.5. Las Vegas sportsbooks, though, if you look at the over-under of this game, do have it as a pretty high-scoring contest overall. Now, going over to the Dolphins, you start Tua, you start Mostert. If you are lucky enough to have the special pick of more than less than half total yard, you take that as well. You start Tyreek, you start Jalen Waddle, you start everybody in this game, okay? Going on the Philadelphia side, you start Jalen Hurts, you start DeAndre Swift, you start A.J. Brown, you start Devonta Smith, you start Dallas Goedert, you start everybody in this game. This is the highest over-under of any game this week. You have to get everybody in you can. Going over to the San Fran side of things, Deebo Samuel will be missing. So if you wanted to go and take the more than 36.5 receiving yards on Brandon Ayuk, you do you. If you're going to be looking at the George Kittle Pickem, they have him at 43.5 receiving yards. So keep in mind, we do not know if CMC will play or not yet. We do know that there's no Deebo Samuel. And there, you have to start Kittle. You have to start Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle, I believe, if we go back and you look through this video one more time, the only tight end that projects to be higher than George Kittle this week includes Hawkinson, Kelsey, and Andrews. They have George Kittle for more receiving yards this week than, hate to say it, Sam Laporta. Regardless of if you agree with it or if you disagree with it, it doesn't matter. Go through and start Kittle with everybody banged up in this offense. Then going over to the Minnesota side of things, obviously, super tough matchup going up against San Fran. Alexander Mattison, 3-down workhorse, though. I mean, at this point, you have to start him. 68.5 total yards for his pick'em. You had only 9 snaps from Cam Akers this past week. And then Jordan Addison, to score a touchdown, you are getting the 2x multiplier. It is a tough matchup. I understand that. But if I'm going to get the 2x multiplier, similar to what we were talking about with Sam Laporta, I think that will be something that I'm looking at. But I think that's all I have for y'all with this live stream. I'll be live in a couple hours answering all your questions. So just make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button if you have not done so already. And of course, if you wanted to check out any of those pick'ems in this video, now is 100% the best time to do it. If you're new to Underdog Fantasy, get a Lamar Jackson special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. There's a site-wide special pick'em as well. LeBron James, more than less than half a total yard. And a Flock exclusive special pick'em on top of that. So many of y'all used promo code Flock on Underdog last week that they hooked everybody up. Doesn't matter if you use promo code Flock. 2 years ago, last year, today, yesterday, tomorrow. Next week, you're going to get an Amon-Ra St. Brown special pick'em as well. Literally, never really seen this. 3 special pick'ems the same week. So please make sure you are taking advantage of that. Link in the live chat, link in the description, link in the comment section. Only going to get all 3 code FLOCK. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope that you have a great day, and really hope I get to see you out in the live stream later tonight.